Welcome everybody to the One to Go show. It is Pooka once again joined by Bert Lehman and Ryan Aho. You can find us all on Facebook at Bert Lehman, at Ryan Aho, at Racer Pooka, and of course, many of you are on the One to Go show Facebook page right now. So welcome. Maybe give us a thumbs up, give us a like. We'd appreciate that. All right, a lot of racing action over the weekend. We all enjoyed some racing. We're going to start out with Bert on the east side. He was able to catch up with the Dirt King show. So Bert, why don't you take her away? Give us the update from SK, Monster Hall, Unity, whatever they call it these days.
Yeah, I was able to take in my first race of the season. I made the trip to SK Speedway. It's probably been over 10 years since I've been to the track. Actually, there's been a lot of good improvements to the track since I was there last. They have some real nice bleachers to sit in now compared to what they had. Unfortunately, the night didn't go as well as everybody had hoped. They got all the heat races in. The track was rough, and they spent the intermission grading it. I was a little perturbed by that because, I mean, it was already like 10 o'clock when they started grading the track. It might have even been later than that, but actually grading the track did seem to help a lot, and I think it would have been a really good feature in the late models. But unfortunately, during the first feature, all the lights at the track went out, and the call was circuit was overheating, and it flipped the breaker. So they had to let that cool down, and then the lights would come on. I mean, you could see track officials with their hands waving to try to cool it down. But anyway, the lights did come on, but while we were waiting for the lights to come on, I told my wife, they should be lining up the late model feature right now. When those lights come on, that should be the first race out on the track. Nope, that wasn't the case. And they ran the rest of the feature, and then another feature. The late models came out. They took the green. There's a caution on the first lap, and then the lights went out again. And luckily, it happened on a caution and not during racing. But the decision was made between Dirt Kings and track management that it's not safe to be racing when you're not sure how long the lights are going to stay on, which is the right decision. I mean, it's unfortunate that decision had to be made, but just a few things, a few suggestions to racetracks that will help prevent this in the future. First thing is start on time. If you say you're going to start at 7:30, start at 7:30. Not 7:35, not 7:45, and certainly not 8:15 like it was when the races started Friday night. And also, run a tight show. There's no reason for caution laps after caution lap. Get the cars lined up and go. And the third, make adjustments. And what I refer to that is they should have moved the late model feature up, because that's what most of the people there. The stands were actually packed. I mean, there was no social distancing there at all. I mean, we were packed in there. And just want to say, 29 late models. It was good to see some Western cars there. Giassi was there, Sam Mars was there, Chad Mader, and Tim Eisenberg. The rest of the divisions, there are 6 other divisions for a total of 45 cars. And I was texting Ryan during the races. There's only 4 super stocks, and I told him it might be time for him to come out of retirement.
Dude, I'd be guaranteed a top 5. That's for sure. I know I could have got that. You know, here's the deal. So first of all, put it in your notes. If you're keeping track of how many shows you attended, that only counts as a half of one. You don't get to count a full show for that. So I got a question for you. I mean, have they announced, I mean, are they giving refunds? Do they give partial? I mean, are they doing anything for the fans? Have they said anything on Facebook? I mean, what's going on there?
I mean, when they canceled it, they said that they were canceling the rest of the program. They did say the word postponement, but nothing more than that was said. I did go to their Facebook page today. They haven't made any posts since before the races on Friday night. So my assumption is that it's considered a complete show. You know, the track took in the money for the admission. I'm assuming the drivers got, you know, they split the payout. That's what my assumption. So, I mean, really, the only losers are the fans, unfortunately.
Maybe check into that, Bert. I'd be curious to see if they actually did pay out, if they split the, you know, what they did there. I would guess for the regular classes, they'll probably run those features later because, you know, they can run makeup features. The late models, though, I'd be really curious. You know, that surprises me. You know, that, I mean, things happen. I get it. But, you know, let's be honest, that's happened before at that place. They had trouble with circuit breakers back when it was called the Spring Lake Speedway. So they've had electrical issues. I don't know why they haven't fixed it. Scott Duvall ran that place, and you're right. I've been there multiple times, and he made a ton of improvements. The place looks really good, and then he sold it, of course. It's now become the SK Speedway. Car counts, I mean, my goodness. I mean, when you're talking like that few of cars, they got some work to do. And first of all, when you're having a late model special, right, why on earth have 872 classes anyway, right? So they should have probably rethought that whole deal. But what a shame, you know, for everybody. And the fact that they haven't jumped on social media and at least said, you know, hey, we apologize. I mean, honestly, they should have done that right away that night. There should have been some kind of press release that night because that's a bad deal. Now, on the flip side of that, right, I saw Mississippi Thunder. They posted something today on Facebook talking about, hey, we apologize. Track wasn't very good. We're not making excuses. We just made some errors. And I watched the features. I'm like, I didn't think it was that bad. You know, I've seen a lot of races. I didn't think it was that bad. But they took ownership, and they didn't make any excuses. They put it on their shoulders. They said, hey, you guys deserve better. We promise we're going to do better next time. And they didn't even really need to, in my opinion. I thought the track actually looked pretty good. It was pretty decent racing. So it's really surprising when somebody really lays an egg. You know, you kind of got to apologize. So hopefully, if you can keep us in the loop, maybe we'll talk about that next show. Find out if they're going to rerun that feature. Find out if they're going to do something there. That'd be good.
I'll check into that. And then I also did want to mention, even though it's not reflected on the Dirt Kings website page yet, during the races, they did announce that because of COVID-19, they've had to cancel or reschedule the next 4 races on their schedule. And that would include, they're supposed to be at Outagamie Speedway in Seymour next week on Friday. Then they're supposed to be at 141 Speedway on the Tuesday prior to the Clash at the Creek, and that's been canceled. The race at TNT Speedway in 3 weeks has been canceled. And then they're supposed to be at Eagle Valley Speedway on July 2nd, and that's not going to take place either. So actually their next race will be at Mississippi Thunder on July 3rd. So if there's no other races scheduled between now and July 3rd, the only features will be Mississippi Thunder through the first part of their schedule. And then the rest of July is just the drivers get points for showing up at the World of Outlaw shows in Wisconsin. So their their next race would be August 14th at Plymouth Speedway in Plymouth, Wisconsin. So I'm assuming that they're looking to add some shows, because I mean, I can't imagine that they'd be happy to go a month and a half with only one race.
Well, Pooka, what's your thoughts on that? I mean, they say it's because of the COVID deal, but from what I thought, Wisconsin was open. I mean, Eagle Valley's already racing. You know, they've already had a race, so they can't say, hey, we're canceling this because of COVID, because they're actually racing. I mean, unless I'm missing something here, maybe the Eastern Wisconsin tracks, Bert, I mean, are they not even allowed to race, or are some of those tracks opening up? I mean, what's the deal there?
Yeah, is it
well, they're supposed to race at Outagamie Speedway this coming Friday in Seymour. Seymour's not opening until June 12th, though. So Seymour will be opening, but after this race was scheduled. The race in Three Lakes, I think pretty much once COVID started, the area that Three Lakes Speedway is in, that whole county just shut everything down for the summer. I was surprised about the Eagle Valley race being canceled. I'm not quite sure what's up with that, because they've raced there the last 2 years, and I know that Eagle Valley is racing, so I'm not exactly sure why that one was canceled.
Well, maybe they're worried about fans. You know, I mean,
well, fans, or getting enough fans to cover the payout, maybe.
How was the crowd at SK?
Oh, it was packed.
Okay, where I was packed also. I mean, it was jam packed. I mean,
I'm thinking any racetrack is going to be pretty full, just because people want to get out of the house, people want to do something, and you know, everything is getting canceled. I mean, today the Def Leppard, Poison, and Motley Crue concert in Milwaukee got pushed back to 2021. I had tickets for that, so you know, I'll have to wait another year for that.
All right. Well, why don't we, Ryan? Why don't we get going with you now? Thanks, Bert. I think I caught as well as you, Ryan, some of the World of Outlaw late models, and of course the Lucas Oil late models were out racing last week. Also, what do you got for us there?
Well, you know, I'll start with the Lucas Oil late models because, of course, that was Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday last week, and they had I think they called it the opening or the reopening tour is what they called it. And they were down at East Bay, and I tell you what, guys, East Bay does not disappoint. I mean, Speed Weeks was phenomenal racing down there, and then this reopening tour, again, just absolutely lights out racing. The first night was kind of rough, right? Davenport kind of slid Clanton for the lead with 10 to go. Overton and Clanton, actually, they traded sliders multiple times early in the event. The track was a little choppy. Towards the end of the race, there was people that were kind of hitting the ruts, and it looked like mayhem was going to happen. Richards, right? Josh Richards, another flat tire. Like, I don't know how many flat tires it is for him this year, but it's incredible. I mean, he just can't keep airing them. And but Davenport actually won that race. He looked really strong. He looked good down there in Speed Weeks. And actually, we called him out last week, right? We're like, man, he's just not doing nothing. So he actually owes the One to Go show a portion of that check because we called him out. He was fast, right? Now, night two, Kyle Bronson, he got up into the top 5 from the B. I think he was kind of the guy to watch. Overton, he's been really good all year. He won night number 2, and night 3 was an absolute thriller. And Ziegler actually slid Herb for the lead, and then Herb slid him back, heavy contact. Now, it was kind of an aggressive slider both ways. In fact, Ziegler, he didn't say nothing about it. He said that's just good, hard racing because he knew he slid him earlier. And then Overton, who was actually, you know, worked towards the end of the race. It didn't even look like he really had a shot to win, you know, but he was going to get third. But because them guys were trading sliders and the contact was made and they got all crossed up, Overton closed the gap. He looked on the outside, and off of turn 4, he slid Herb for the win in just another highlight reel race at East Bay. So absolutely phenomenal racing down there. Jimmy Owens, of course, won the Tour points, and he's been off to a really good start after we called him out, of course, you know, down in Speed Weeks. We called him out like, man, he can't get nothing going, and he just absolutely lit it up afterwards. I think he's got 6 wins on the year. He's been fast every single night. So, guys, the Lucas Oil stuff, they picked 2 tracks, and everything worked out right with the weather that provided some great entertainment value. So hats off to the Lucas Oil Series there. Did you guys get to watch any of those races?
Yeah, I watched them all, and yeah, like I said, the slider, and you could see. Well, let's go back to the slider. You know, Herb really wanted that win, and you could tell even in his interview after he wasn't too happy. And we've all seen the Tyler Herb interview from last summer with Bronson, and you could see he was kind of had that smile on his face, but I think it was a pretty fake smile. I mean, he really wanted that win. Didn't he bank off Richards a few laps before he was battling for the lead? I think he quarter paneled Richards too. Herb was aggressive, and that's what makes it so dang fun to watch, right? I mean, you got some guys in there between Ziegler and Bronson and Herb, and they're not afraid to rough each other up. I mean, it's they're going to be fisticuffs flying before the end of the season, probably. Herb's a Texas boy, you know. Don't mess with Texas, you know, New Waverly, Texas. So what else did I have thoughts on? Oh, Rick Eckert went in the heat. I mean, comes out of nowhere. I mean, a surprise entrant in my mind. You know, he gets the heat win, and then Earl Pearson, another guy we've talked about a lot. He did get a top 10, I see, on Tuesday. So, I mean, a little bit better. But I think overall my reaction, or just kind of cap things off from down in Florida with the Lucases, you know, your contenders, I think it's down to 3 right now. You've got Owens, you've got T-Mac, and you've got Davenport. And I think those are kind of the 3 that for the points that are the guys we're going to watch. So,
you know, Richards, honestly, he's been fast, but my goodness, he's had some bad luck. I mean, he tore some stuff up again. The one night his whole right side ripped off the car. I mean, he can't catch a break. I mean, when he's there, but flat tire after flat tire, it's like, it's one of those deals where he's just got to like perform an exorcism on the car or something. It's just crazy. He's got to find some much better luck than what he's had.
Well, and
What's your thoughts?
the funny thing about Richards is, you know, I remember an interview from early in the season that, you know, he said that Boyer went down from 2 teams down to 1 because they wanted to concentrate on trying to win the championship. And it, like you said, it seems like they just have gremlins now that, you know, pop up here and there. But yeah, I mean, overall, I watched all the races down there, and I mean, it was great racing. And I agree with Pooka that there is no way Herb was going to be. He wasn't going to give up a chance to win. I mean, he was going to throw that slider in there any way he could, and it just in the end it didn't work out for him. I mean, he still had a strong finish, but he wanted the victory. I mean, after getting so many victories early in the season last year, you know, this year's kind of been a letdown because, you know, he hasn't found victory lane as often as he did last year at this time.
You know, Pooka, who did you say the top 3 contenders were in points? You said T-Mac, you said Owens.
Well, this is my opinion. No, I don't even, I think it's going to come down to T-Mac, Owens, and JD. You know, it's just
Dude, Brandon Overton, in my mind, Brandon Overton would have swept the weekend. But remember, he was battling for the lead there the first night and broke, get a vibration. Otherwise, he could have went 3 in a row down there. You know, that's another guy right there. He is actually off to a huge year. How many wins does he have? He's got to have 5.
I thought I heard they said 6. Well,
6,
I think they said 5, but then he won that last night, so I think it's 6.
Yeah, so I mean, there's another guy that is absolutely just on a tear, and so I tell you what, you guys, you know, we differed in opinion. I guess I was wrong. Okay, not that the World of Outlaw Racing hasn't been good, but man, I mean, you look at the Lucas Oil Field right now and look at the racing they had. My God, I mean, it has been some absolutely amazing racing. Now let's talk about the World of Outlaws. Did you guys get to see either one of those races?
I just saw some highlights.
Absolutely unique deal, right? So they're at Davenport, and they had the inside-out deal. They got the quarter mile. Was a quarter mile? I think it was a quarter or half, 3/8. I mean, small track, right? And then they had the half mile track the next night. Now, Bert's he's a Shawano guy. He likes the big half mile type racetrack. I'm a bouldering guy. I went through a whole lot of rivets in my life, like pounding sheet metal, right? So I like the turn and burn type deal, but awesome racing. I mean, it was good. And Ricky Thornton Jr. was inches from doubling up, from going 2 in a row. And actually, I talked to his brother today, and there was an issue with the transponder. See, they didn't know who won that race. I mean, he absolutely looked like he was going to have it won. He made a mistake. Like late in the race, he kind of went down to kind of block Shepard. He was running the top. He was pushing a little bit on the top of 3 and 4. And you know, Shepard was making a little ground on him, so he went down to kind of shut the door. And Shepard snuck by him at the end. And it turns out that B-Shep had his transponder mounted up on the right front frame rail. That's where you can have it. In the old rule, it had to be on the mid plate. So Thornton actually had his mounted on the mid plate. Well, if you measure that, you're looking at 4 feet, maybe a little bit more, somewhere around 4 feet. Now we're talking 7 1,000ths of a second. I don't know how that relates in inches, right? I don't know what that means. But 7 1,000ths of a second is a very, very, very small. That's like the closest win that I've heard in a long time. So maybe, right? Maybe if he would have had it mounted up on the right front frame, it would have been closer, or he would have won. But what a race! I mean, that was incredible. I mean, I love bullring racing. And then the next night, B-Shep flat out dominated. He was a class of the field. Now, with that said, Jimmy Mars with a hell of a run. I think he started 11th, I believe he started, and he drove up to 2nd on the bottom. And actually, who's the other guy that has, Dillard. He was up in the top 5. So I think maybe got 3rd or 4th. So 2 MB cars up there. Yeah, he got 4th. So he looked really good. Hats off to Jimmy Mars. I mean, that's the best run he's had in a while, and he came from deep to do it. But incredible racing down there. I'm a big fan of the first night. I just love the quarter mile. I love the bull ring type stuff. But unique deal, and it didn't disappoint. Very good show.
Go ahead, Bert.
I just want to say that I do like small tracks also.
Attaboy. I knew I liked you.
Well, yeah, I said I was able to catch some of that. Unfortunately, the B1 bomber again, Brett Larson, last weekend in Jackson, he looped it. And this weekend he was down there. I saw the first night he looped it. But
the second night, though, Pooka, didn't he finish like 13th, 14th or something the second night?
Did he do all right? Yeah, I just remember, I just like, gosh, the guy just can't see. Like, we're talking about Richard catching a break. I mean, Brett Larson is not a bad driver. I mean, Brett Larson, for those of you that don't know, has won points championships at Cedar Lake. And if you win points championships at Cedar Lake in a late model, you're no dummy. I mean, you've got your act together. And he was winning this like 04, 05, 06 when Cedar Lake was still Cedar Lake, when you still had the best there every week. So it's just surprising to me. That's why I'm bringing it up. Not bringing it up to poke at him. I'm bringing it up like Brett Larson knows what he's doing. And just like, what the heck. So hopefully he's got that, kind of gremlin behind him. And, like Bobby Pierce started in the front row both night. And I think he ended up with, a 6th place and 8th place finish. So that's a little maybe odd for Pierce.
He looked like a fly swatter the first night. Right, we're going to talk about Mr. Smooth, or the smooth operator, Bobby Pierce, right? How about they just add like not so, right? They got to put not so smooth operator. I mean, I enjoy watching him. I mean, when you get him on Fairbury or something with a cushion, something with some traction on it, he is amazingly fun to watch. But my God, he was like a fly swatter. He was like sideways and jumping the cushion and slapping the wall, and I'm like, what is this? What is he doing? Just absolutely, the car was driving him. It looked like, another guy that really has been laying an egg, and let's just go ahead and call him out. Is Scott Bloomquist ever going to win a meaningful race ever again, or is he done?
Go ahead, Bert.
It's hard to say that he's done, but I see the point that you're trying to make. I mean, he hasn't been in contention this year, and switching over the World of Outlaws, I think a lot of people had high hopes that, he was going to challenge for the championship, but it's just not playing out that way so far this season. He's not even having top 10 runs. I mean, it's, out of the top 10. He was finally
running 6th, right, on the last night, and he broke something. I don't know what he broke, and he about wadded up the whole field when he shut it down. But my goodness, I mean, he is like, he's been a non-factor other than that race he won at the very end when he was cherry picking down there wherever he was at the end of the year last year after he got back in a race car. I mean, man, ever since his health deal and all that, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of good race car drivers out there in the late models right now. There's some people really on top of the game. And, you look at Madden too. Madden ain't running worth a crap. He's been terrible all year long, but Bloomquist has been absolutely he's been nothing much more than a field filler is really all he's been. Maybe he just needs to retire, come there, sell T-shirts, sign autographs, wait for the crowd, make his money, because he's not performing. So that's not the Scott Bloomquist that we know. And I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and say it right now that I will be astonished if he wins a meaningful race in 2020.
Well, based on the trend, who's going to win the next World of Outlaw race. It's going to be Scott Bloomquist.
Yeah, we seem to have a habit of calling him out. Yeah, just two things that I agree, right? I mean, Bloomquist is struggling. Like I said, Madden, just about a year ago, we'll call it July last year, so 11 months ago, started off that hot streak where he was the hottest driver all the way through the fall. He won the first World of Outlaw race out in Vado. So he's an eyelash off, but then you've got Ricky, who seems like he's a top 3 every night, so it just, I don't know. I don't know enough about racing in a race car to know really what's going on there. But then I kind of thought the Bloomquist cars were going to benefit most. I thought that during this whole break that they would have been doing a lot of testing. They've got the resources to do it. I thought they would be to figure out that deck deal. And apparently I was wrong. They were sitting, they took quarantine off, and I think some other people got ahead of them.
Well, I talked to Jeff Provenzino, and Pravo's they know Bloomquist very well, and he's like, it's an absolute cluster down there. He said it's like literally he don't want to pay nobody. He said their operation is absolutely terrible. He goes, obviously Scott Bloomquist is one of the smartest people in dirt track late model racing ever. One of the most, if not the most, one of the top 2 most successful late model guys in the history of late model racing. And like their operation down there, as far as a business standpoint, is just subpar. It's absolutely, so not only were they not testing, they were barely having a hard time even getting equipment ready to go. So I think he's almost got to focus on, that's a problem right there, right? He's a race car driver, professional race car driver. Be a professional race car driver. Hire somebody to run the business, and you focus on racing, because it's looking to me like, yeah, the guy's had a lot of money come in, a lot of money go out. I don't think he's very business smart. And, it's maybe this is another example where it shows.
Well, and that's, I mean, this would be my last comment because we just got to move on time. But remember, he brought Cody Sommer in, and he was supposed to kind of be the business manager. But you don't hear a lot about Corey anymore. So, who knows what's going on there? But I've heard the exact same thing from Jeff Provenzino that it's like trying to get parts out of there. You might be waiting 6 weeks. It's just like a merry-go-round down there. He said. So,
Three-ring circus.
Yeah, exactly. So, I'll kind of let you guys know what I did this weekend. I was at the 59th opener of the Gondik Law Speedway down in Superior, Wisconsin. I'll tell you guys, I got there, and Ryan, when you're racing this time of year in the Twin Ports, and Bert, you probably know a little bit too, because Shauna wasn't too far from the bay there on Lake Michigan. When the wind is blowing and it's blowing the wrong way, it can make for miserable fan experience. And so I'm down there. I worked down there that day. I finished up about 5:30, 7 o'clock race time. I hemmed and hawed, hemmed and hawed. I said, well, just do it. You got to just go. But I'm watching flags. They're just whipping in the wind. So I get over there. I decide not to go in right away because I'm like, gosh, and it's clouding up a little bit. I'm like, I just don't want to freeze. I just don't want to have, a miserable experience. But I ended up going in.
Did you bring a jacket?
I had the winter hat. I had the whole deal.
All right. You were prepared. All right. I wanted to make sure. All right.
By feature time, the wind stopped by feature time. The flags were sitting limp, and it was actually very comfortable. It was sweatshirt weather, by feature time. But, when people were kind of rolling in during hot laps and stuff, a pretty strong wind and stuff. But anyway, packed grandstands, absolutely packed. They took a temperature on the way in. I didn't see a lot of masks or gloves. And just some of my commentary is, one thing you see in Wissota sometimes, and I've got some notes here, is because of the no time trialing, you'll end up with a heat sometimes that's really stacked, and then the next heat, not so much. Well, here is heat one included in the late models, included Pat Dorr, John Canta, Mike Prochnow, Don Shaw, Daryl Nelson, even Jeffrey Massico's a guy that runs there every week, right? Heat two, Steve Larson started on the pole. He actually ended up winning it. Dave Moss, good racer, but getting, kind of new to the late model. Van House, who's competitive there. Tim McMahon, but then it goes Jake Kittner, who doesn't race there often, Terry Lillo, Steve Hupkowski, and Joe Kinsley Jr. So, that first late model heat, you could just see it was just completely stacked. The second one, not so much. So that was just, when there's time trialing and stuff, that kind of levels the playing field. But that, Ryan, you know all about that. That's kind of the risk you take with the pill draw.
Yeah, that's the thing. As a racer, I loved when we had time trials, and the only time I ever did it really was down in Florida. And if you're fast, you're going to start towards the front. So I loved it, and I see why they don't do it. They like to split them up. I mean, that's an example right there where, But there was the second heat had some pretty good cars in it. I mean, Van House was very strong all night long. So, but yeah, the first heat was definitely stronger. That just kind of happens. I think you just kind of got to roll with the punches there. I look at them as qualifying races, and we're there for the features anyway.
Right. Yeah, and that's one of the points I was bringing up Van House. Now, we talked about Bert. This Van House was the Wissota Rookie of the Year, late model Rookie of the Year last year. He runs a Longhorn, and we've talked about this last year. Now, it was one of the first things that came in my mind watching him during the feature. Obviously, we're in Jimmy Mars MB country, right? We were just talking about Jimmy. I can't name another. I think Marshall Fagers, at least at one point, was in a Longhorn. I can't name 5 guys with all the national success Longhorn chassis has in the late models. I can't name 5 Wissota late model guys that have them. And like I said, Van House comes out of the box last year, wins Rookie of the Year, and I don't think that turned anyone's head.
Here's the thing, and nobody really expected him to either, because he honestly, in the Midwest mod, he was just kind of, he was good. He ran good, but he wasn't dominant. He wasn't a top 3 every night kind of guy. He got in the late model. He found his own, and he looked really strong. He's incredibly smooth, looked really good in the feature. He chased down Canta from a ways. He put some heavy pressure on him, was really good on the bottom, especially I think it was off a turn 2. He was just really good. And I think he's going to have a really good year this year. But you're right. You don't really see many Longhorns out there. And, that's kind of the thing with late models or any class, right? there's a bunch of guys and like 2 or 3 that are kind of like dominant, but then it's fun to see that guy come in with something totally different and perform. And that's, you know, Michael Page did it with that. What do you have, a Stinger car we were talking about a couple weeks ago? He went down there. I'm like, I never even heard of that. I mean, late model guys know all about Stinger car. I don't know anything about it. He went out and won, was really good. So, you know, Jimmy Owens said it best. I was down in Speed Weeks. Man, it had to have been 15 years ago, 20 years ago maybe. He was in a mod, and he came from the D to the C to the B and worked his way in, and he won. I mean, he was absolutely lights out. And he said a race car is just a race car. He goes, there's a bunch of tubing. You got suspension points. He goes, but a car is just a car. You tell it what it wants. They're all kind of the same deal. So I believe that to be true, that if you know anything about suspensions, you can make any car work. And, you know, they have a good program there. I don't know who's helping them, but he's going to be fun to watch this year for sure.
Yeah, he did really well, in the feature. And then just a couple other notes. Don Shaw started on the outside pole in the feature, backward to 6th. You don't see that very often. I did have a conversation with his daughter. I ended up standing by her. 3 Moyer cars and an XR1 in the shop. The XR1 will be driven by him, he said, or she said most of the time, although she was very frustrated because he went backward in the heat and went backward in the feature. Dave Moss is running one of the XR or the Moyer cars, the Victory Circles, with the crate engine in it. But so he's said locked and loaded, ready to go. Obviously, he's a promoter now. He owns the racetrack down in Fergus Falls, but with 4 cars, and it's not like he's be slowing down his racing life anytime soon. And the last comment I had was, we talked about the Dirt King show that Bert was at, and John Canta and Pat Dorr came to Superior. They drove right past, well, actually not right past because it's to the east, but for John Canta, I actually looked it up. 160 miles to Superior, Wisconsin, 80 miles, exactly half over to Unity. I was very surprised to see him there. And the money, I mean, he made the right move, as it turns out, because he actually got to race a feature and led virtually every lap, I think about 17 laps. But, I was really surprised to see Pat Dorr, some of those guys that are a little bit more competitive. I thought that they would be, well, as you guys know, and for those of you on the Facebook page, you can see I picked Pat Dorr as the winner of the Dirt Kings. I got the winner right that night because he did win, but he won in Superior, not at SK.
Turns out we were all wrong for SK. None of us got that one right. But, hey, we talked about that quite a bit on Friday. And you're like, I'm surprised. Where are they going? I'm like, so here's the deal. SK Speedway used to be Monster Hall, then Central Wisconsin Raceway, then Spring Lake Speedway, and then now it's SK, right? Well, here's the deal. It's never had a good reputation as a good facility, a good racetrack. I mean, let's be honest, it's kind of been called a hillbilly track. I mean, it's not been very good racing. Now, I've seen some good racing there, but not very consistent. And we're talking late model guys that spend a lot of money on their race cars. They want to race. They want to go to a good track. And Superior, Gondik Law Speedway, was phenomenal. I mean, when that place is good, it's one of the best racetracks in the country. I've seen some amazing races there. So they looked at that, and they looked at the weather. They both looked good, and obviously they made the right call. But I was not even a little tiny bit surprised that they made the trek north, because both of them guys performed very well there. Pat Dorr's got Kibbe Brothers Trucking as a sponsor, so he's got a local area sponsor up there. So I just didn't surprise me. People want to go to a good racetrack, and that's just an example of it. Don't matter how much money you throw at it, they're going to go where they enjoy to go. And you talked a little bit about Dave Moss. I got a little insider information there too. Did you notice that one of the sponsors on the side of his cars is Structural Buildings? Did you notice that?
No, I didn't.
Structural Buildings is the title sponsor of the Late Model Challenge Series in Wissota. So from what I understand is he has intent to run if it happens, if they go to a condensed season. I'm not sure what they're going to do there, but he has an intent to run the Challenge Series this year because his sponsor is the title sponsor of that. So it's going to be fun to see him running that late model. Dave's a good racer. I mean, he's been in sprint cars, street stocks, super stocks, Midwest mods, modifieds, late models, and he's won in every single one of them. He's one of those rare talents. And me and him, we were bitter rivals, right? But he's a rare talent that you put him in any car, and he's been very good. He's a good race car driver. In touching on that, I know you like to focus on late models, but I watched Gondik Law, the super stock race. Shane Sobraski won that, but then he had a big lead. Yellow comes out, right? Moss is second, Burdick's third. Now, all three of them Wissota Superstock National Champs. Sobraski won the mods last year. Burdick won the supers. And on that restart, Burdick powered around the outside of Moss, shoved it down inside of Sobraski. Looked like he was going to maybe take the lead. Just couldn't get that car to quite rotate through the center of the corner. Sobraski was smoother, drove away. But, I mean, there was some immense talent in the Superstock class. So Moss obviously pulling double duty. And in the modifieds there, Dan Ebert, lights out. I mean, just absolutely dominated the show. Flat out, just put a beat down. But another guy, guys, that I want to point out in the late model. So we talked about Door 1 on the high side. Canto, led the majority of the race. But Daryl Nelson, where did he start? 13th, I believe he started. And he drove up to second, and he was looking really strong. Had that been 5 more laps or maybe another late yellow there, he might have had a shot to win. So he really looked bad at me.
Yeah, what he was doing was, and you could see about halfway, he figured out if you exited right along the tires, because everyone was just kind of running the middle and just letting the car, hammering the gas, how superior it is, but he brake hard and he right along it, and when he exit, oh my gosh, he just, so yeah, you said that a couple weeks ago, Ryan. He's the kind of guy that'll search the track. Well, he searched the track and he found that to his liking. And yeah, it was, that late restart with about 3 to go really changed things. Cat, they had it won otherwise. Some door sweeps around on the outside, and you got Darrell coming to the inside, and then Van House gets shuffled back running second the whole race. He ends up fourth, but yeah, like I said, very entertaining. Yeah, like I said, the modifieds. I mean, you had Ebert, you had Darrell, you had Esty,
Sobraski.
It was. Sobraski, man, it was just like the previous week,
Yep. And Johnny Broking started like 14th, 15th. He fell back. I watched. He fell back to like 18th or something. I mean, he had a terrible start, and then he charged up and got a top 5 out of that deal from coming deep. So what that tells me, I mean, you look at that Pat Door, guys. He won from 8th, right? So he won from 8th. That was a hell of a racetrack. I don't know who's prepping that place, but hats off to them, because when there's that much passing and there's Doors winning on the top, Nelson's passing on the bottom, there's people running all over the place. That was a phenomenal racetrack, and they got a doubleheader coming up this weekend, Thursday and Friday. Thursday, no late models, but Friday they have a full show. So, there's a lot of racing to be had for people that are in the Twin Ports area. We can't race in Minnesota, but Gondik Law Speedway's got her going on.
All right. Well, yeah, let's move on to kind of the last part, Ryan. Let's catch us up on the sprints and maybe a little bit on Cedar Lake.
Yeah, well, Cedar Lake, what do they have? 154 cars. So I want to touch on, guys, Cedar Lake's in our area for as long as I can remember has been the mecca of racing. I mean, that place, and it was, to me, one of the saddest things I've ever seen is when they split with Wissota, because it was just a bad deal. I mean, the Wissota 100 used to be awesome. It still breaks my heart. Hopefully someday they can kind of mend that, because I think it'd be good for everybody. But 24 lates, which is a good field for them, 44 modifieds, unbelievable, 27 supers. I mean, they had like 40, I think they had, I don't remember how many Midwest mods, but it was a ton of Midwest mods too. But 154 cars, guys, that's like the Cedar Lake of old. Now, man, back in the day, I remember times where there was like 50 or 60 supers and mods, but I mean, it's not very often you see car counts like that. So sometimes when things are bad in some areas, places capitalize on that. And I know they got their first Dash Series race coming up this Saturday. No late models there, but they have a Dash Series race coming up for all the other classes. Hopefully they get some big car counts for that. Did you guys see any results or hear anything? I know Jesse Glenn's won in the late model. Did you really pay much attention to Cedar Lake as far as how the racing went?
Go ahead, Bert.
I didn't. I know Nick Avalink made the trip over to Cedar Lake this last weekend. He posted on his Facebook page that things didn't go as they had hoped. I think he finished 12th in the feature, he said. But just to add on to your point that, yeah, I mean, Cedar Lake has always been, the mecca of late model racing as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I can remember, back when they would average like low 30s for late models, which was just unbelievable. And that's why I always look forward to when Eastern Wisconsin was in Wissota and they would have a Wissota Challenge Series. I loved it when the Western drivers would come over to Eastern Wisconsin to race, and I miss that. And yeah, when Cedar Lake and Wissota went their separate ways, that was disappointing because the Wissota 100 was always a special weekend. I enjoyed that weekend a lot. It got to be a long weekend, but it was a fun weekend.
Yeah, and I just wanted to say that you know, a guy that up in my area here, Jeffrey Massengill, made the trip, and he's in a new. We talked about this way back. He's in a new kryptonite. He's actually a kryptonite dealer, and he started on the pole. I think he ended up third. So you know, he doesn't have a lot of. I think that might have been his first night out. You know, so I mean, well, no, Superior would have been. So first weekend out. You know, so he's gonna have to shake some things down, but you know, pretty good run. Like I said, if you can win at Cedar Lake, you got your shit together. I mean, there's just no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so a respectable third place finish.
Absolutely. And I'm going to call somebody out, okay? Because the Masters, Pooka, I know you have the information on that. What are they paying for the mods? Isn't it like 4, 6, and 8? Or I mean, they're paying good money for the mods. What are they?
Oh yeah, it's something like that. I don't even exact. I just remember from last year. That's what it was. It was like, yeah, the whatever, like late models, whatever, like 3,000 the first day, 5,000 second day. So you know,
Yeah.
we just kind of got some hotel stuff rolling on it, but yeah, it progresses. So because the Masters have been so many things through the years, you know, late model, invite only, then they've had sprints and lates, and then it was part of the Hell Tour, and then they had the US MTS, and it's been so many things. But anyway, I don't stealing your thunder. I'm sorry.
So yeah, so needless to say, the Masters is a great weekend for mods. I think it's 10,000 to win for the late models. And then they also, in July, they have like a 5,000 to win show in every class, right? They have something, remember we talked about that earlier. I think I don't remember what they called it. Now, I'm going to call out Johnny Broking and Bob Broking, all right? I want you to put your big boy panties on. There ain't no national points going on in Wissota right now. Put your big boy panties on. Get your butt down to Cedar Lake where all the cars are going to be. Go down there, race down there, get yourself prepped so when these big money shows come up, you can go there and have a shot to win them. You know, don't be going to, you know, podunk tracks with 10 cars. You guys are both fast. Get your butt down there. I'm calling you out, Johnny. I know you're listening to this, so I'm talking to you. Get to Cedar Lake. No national points. That's the place to be. You want to be there.
All right. How about sprint cars? Do you want to touch on them?
Yeah, I'll touch on that. You know, briefly. I watched a little bit of the World of Outlaws. I know I just saw the highlights there. I know that Schatz passed Kyle Larson on the second night there at Lake Ozark. Last lap pass. That was awesome. I think Logan Schuchart won the first night. I think he's the point leader. So there was some great racing there. But the race of the year that I've seen some good racing. I watched a lot of pay-per-view racing. But the race of the year for me was the All-Star Sprints IRA. They ran kind of a co-sanction. Bert talks about that in the late models. Let's get a co-sanction deal. So they had a co-sanction deal. Oh, my God. What a race. It was on Flow. I watched the highlights, and literally they showed the whole feature. It was a 25-lap feature. The whole thing was a highlight. Tony Stewart leads early. Then for the next 10 laps, him and Corey Eliason were swapping the lead. Eliason spins out, right? Caution comes out, and then out of nowhere, here comes Aaron Reitzel, Austin McCarroll. They both drive by Stewart, and guys, they literally swapped the lead. I lost count, but like it seemed like every lap for the last half of the race, they were swapping the lead. It was absolutely amazing. And Aaron Reitzel, I believe, actually McCarroll won. Aaron Reitzel led going into the last corner. McCarroll slid underneath them, and I never saw bumping, you know, kind of like that 8-wheel side bite deal in a sprint car. Usually I thought by cartwheel. And McCarroll actually dove underneath and just kind of moved Reitzel up the track, drove by him for the win. Guys, I know you guys watched the highlights on that. I'm not normally a sprint car guy, but wow. That was some good racing. One thing I did notice, because I watched the Lucas Oil stuff, the World of Outlaw late models, the World of Outlaw sprints, is I'm telling you what, the announcer for the World of Outlaw sprint car, the way that they hype that up before the feature, second to none. Second to none. They get the music playing, your blood's pumping. I mean, they hype it up, and it is absolutely incredible. And that leads me to this. If you want to, I never understood how big of a difference a good announcer, because I've heard a lot of different announcers. Some of them are like, some of them are great. But if you have the right announcer and you get somebody that can get some music going and all that, my goodness, it like doubles the value of the show. So I'm not usually normally a sprint car guy, but there was some great sprint car racing. And when I'm still sitting at home, I'm in Illinois, we can't really go anywhere. Like one night, I think I had 5 races on at one time, kind of flipping back and forth on my browser, and it was fun to watch. So definitely, in my opinion, so far, that might be the race of the year.
All right. Well, you were just talking about all your screens and all you're watching. You said you've watched a lot of racing this year from the comfort of that recliner where you're at. And we just kind of want to banter around here a little bit. Of course, like I said, unless you've been living in a rock, there's racing just about every night. You can get on the internet, you can subscribe, or you can buy just an individual show. And this is real life racing. We're not talking about the iRacing anymore. And so we're going to banter here just a little bit about the potential effects to your local dirt track, as far as, if a guy can get in 2-3 nights of racing online, especially if they're specials, is he going to get his butt off the recliner to get down to the local dirt track, especially for a regular night? And Bert, why don't you take us away on kind of what your thoughts are on this subject?
Well, that is a concern. One of the things, though, with streaming races is the races are all on all these different companies. So you got to subscribe to this company. You got to subscribe to this company. And by the time you add up all the subscriptions that you have, it can cost you a pretty good chunk of money. And I was thinking about that because we have the Eldora stream coming up later or coming up soon. And it's like, that'd be cool to watch, but it's like, well, there's racing, there's local racing, and you can watch it online, but it still doesn't beat actually being at the event, hearing the engines roar, the smell of alcohol, the thrill of the crowd watching passes going on. Yeah, for the casual fan, maybe that's not that big of a deal, but to me, being there in person is so much better than watching it online. And I've watched more online races this year than I have ever, because I finally have a strong enough internet where I can do that.
Well, you're exactly right, Bert. I texted my wife when I was in Superior there on Friday night, and I said, I'm glad I stayed, because I was texting. I said, I don't know if I'm going to stay cold and all this. I'm going to wimp out. And, but I was like, the sight, of course, the smell, and most of all, the rumble. That rumble that you feel through your body. There's nothing like being there live, Ryan. Go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I for sure have watched more racing online this year than I've watched ever in my entire life. So I'm with Bert on that one. But what's crazy to me? It seems like there's a special every weekend, every night. There's always a special event, whether it's the National Series, like the World of Outlaws. You could be a World of Outlaw Sprint fan. You could be a World of Outlaw late model fan. Lucas Oil, Dirt on Dirt's got a bunch of late model action. Man, there is a ton. There's a special all the time going on. So my thoughts is this. So if you're the person watching from home, are you going to watch a late model special, or are you going to watch a local race, right? So there's got to be the value. If you don't know a certain driver, now if you're following somebody, you're probably going to watch that local race because you have somebody to watch. But here's where the problem comes in. See, Bert and Pooka, you guys are diehard fans. Big late model fans, very educated on racing. You're diehard, but you guys are few and far between. There's not enough of you, right? So the tracks need a whole lot more of the casual fans, the first time people, and man, with all the specials going on, sometimes there's too much racing. And right now, you're looking at the car counts at some of these races where they're really good because there's not a lot of stuff going on. Now, when all these other tracks open up and you got a whole bunch of weekly racing, you look at SK Speedway, they had 4 supers and whatever. My goodness. And that's Menominee ain't even open yet, right? So it's like, where are these guys? Where were they at? It's not like they were going anywhere else. So that was kind of crazy to me. What are they competing against? So you start thinking about that. So you got drivers, you got track workers, you got there's a lot of work to be done. And this is where value comes in, right? Because are too many specials hurting the regular night racing? I've heard that, like with the Challenge Series so many times. You have the Challenge Series stuff Fridays, Saturdays. Well, now you see a lot less guys racing for track points because they're going to a special somewhere. And that's So IMCA is a sanctioning body that really delve on the regular local weekly racing. And then when they do have a special, they have a special, right? You got Boone, you got Las Vegas, right? You got all that stuff, and they get huge car counts at this stuff because they don't have a lot of specials. Back in the day, I don't remember there being that many specials, right? Back in the day, there was weekly racing, and every once in a while, if there was a special, it was on a Tuesday or it was on a Wednesday, you know, something like that. And on the weekends, it was regular weekly racing until the end of the year. And now it's like, my goodness, how can a local track survive? Well, the answer to that is you got to focus in other areas, because the racing, the enthusiasts, they might travel a little bit and hit them specials, right? So what they got to do is, like we talked about earlier in the year, you got to have that carnival atmosphere. You got to appeal to all the different senses in that. So people got to get really creative. Once this thing opens up, it's going to be like a false sense of security, because when tracks open up, you're going to have a whole bunch of diehards going to the races. So people are going to be like, oh man, racing's back. Look at the crowds. Well, that's just because they're hungry. So don't get that false sense of security. Even like you looked at Gondik Law Speedway and Cedar Lake, big car counts, big fan counts. What's going to happen when everything opens back up and things kind of get back to normal? Is that going to stay consistent, or is this kind of like a special event type atmosphere? So what they're going to have to do is they're going to have to get very creative on, number one, how to get new people to the track, but number two, how to keep them coming. And number three, when you're doing all that creative stuff, for dang sure, don't make a 3-hour program into a 5-hour program, right? You don't want to make it into a circus and a gong show and piss off all, you know, you guys are diehard race fans, because if they make these guys happy and they piss all you guys off, it just ain't going to be a good deal. So there's going to be some work that has to be done, but in my opinion, they really got to be careful with too many specials.
Bert, anything else?
Well, I just want to say, you know, with this COVID thing, it seems like some organizations and subscription services are going out of their way to make racing available via streaming. Now, whether they can sustain that, that's going to be another question, you know, as more racetracks open up and, you know, other summer activities take place.
Well, I'd be interested to see fans, you know, if you're watching us from Facebook right now, maybe you could comment. What I'd like to know is what percentage of our listeners has watched a race online. I'm assuming it's a high percentage, but if you wouldn't mind just putting in the comments, but yes, I have. And then I'd also like to know how many of you, do you have a consistent monthly service like with Dirt Race Central, or do you just kind of pick and choose here? It'd be, you know, kind of interesting just to know where people in our area kind of what, you know, what their thoughts are, I think. So if you guys, if you know, like I said, if you're watching this online or on Facebook, if you don't mind just taking a second, we'd appreciate it. Now, we're going to stay on the streaming subject, because the stream, as many of you have probably heard, is going to take the place of the 26th annual Dream. And yes, that's right. Eldora has decided to do an invite-only race coming up right away this weekend, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 4th, 5th, 6th of June. 50,000 to win. Looks like a $202,000 total purse. Brian, why don't we start with you? Thoughts on the stream?
Well, I mean, Eldora is iconic, right? I mean, so I think a lot of people are looking forward to it, but Bert hit the nail on the head. It's like, man, you know, you start all these different deals, right? All these different streams. This one's on Flow, right? So if you got a Dirt on Dirt subscription for late model racing or Dirt Vision, now you got to buy a subscription to Flow. Yeah. It's $150, right? Well, I don't know how many races they have on it over the course of the year. I have no idea. And I mean, I think they have some USAC stuff. I think they have some sprint car stuff, but I don't really see them having a whole lot more late model stuff. So, I mean, you take a late model fan that's out there, if they really want to watch it, they're going to have to pay $150 to watch one event. Sorry, I'm just not interested in that. That makes no sense to me. I mean, I believe, and I'm not sure on this, but I was under the understanding that Flow now owns Dirt on Dirt. Correct. Well, if that's the case, why didn't they just do it on Dirt on Dirt? That tells you right there that they're being just a little bit greedy on this one, right? Because they're looking at it and they know that all them diehard late model fans out there, they're like, well, yeah, we got Dirt on Dirt, but oh man, I really want to see this race at Eldora, so I'm going to throw the $150 at it, and maybe I'll watch something later in the year. And they don't even have, see, a lot of places they have a deal where you can pay per month, right? And then you watch the one event that you want, and then you just cancel it at the end of the month. So that, you know, that's, and they're probably wise to that, because a lot of places, a lot of people have done that, and they don't even have that option. See, the option they have is you pay $150 one time, and then you have it for the whole year. It don't matter if you use it or not, like a gym membership, right? You know, so it's, I'm just kind of torn on that. I think that's kind of a, you know, puts a bad taste in my mouth. And then Eldora Speedway, man, they snubbed some people. Rusty Schlenk, in my opinion, is the top guy at Eldora. He's like their local hero right now. He's their #1 guy. He doesn't get the nod. He's not into the invite-only show. And you got Jerry Bowersock. I don't know who that. You guys might know. I never heard of the guy. Nick Hoffman. Even Billy Moyer Jr. What the heck has he done other than being Billy Moyer's kid, right? You know, I mean, nothing against them, but how did they get in? And they don't let their local guy. I mean, there's a few more. I'm not very familiar with all their drivers, but there's a few local guys that they didn't even get an opportunity to be in the show. That's a bunch of crap.
Yeah, even Knoxville. Remember when the World of Outlaw Sprints, 3 weeks ago, they were at Knoxville. And remember they said, we're taking World of Outlaw points, we're taking IRA points. They went through and they said, and we're taking local competitors based on points. So they fed them in. No, I think that's a great point. I agree with you. And, you know, the $150, Ryan, of course, that's $150 that's not going to be spent at the local dirt track this weekend. Bert, your comments on the stream?
Well, I'm going to be curious to see what kind of, if they actually release the subscription numbers for this race, because I mean, I've been to the World 100, I don't know, probably 10 times or so, and going to a race at Eldora is more than just watching a race. It's an experience. You go there, like the group that I go with, we meet with probably 5 to 10 other people from different states. We grill out every day, you know, we're just a small group. Everybody does it there. So, and at $150, I just don't see a lot of, unless you really want to see the race, I don't see a lot of people doing that. I guess I'd be curious to see if any bars get subscriptions and, you know, have invite patrons to come in and watch the race. But for individuals to pay, I mean, I go to the World 100, my tickets for 3 nights are around $100, and they want me to pay $150 to watch it online. You know,
yeah, that don't make much sense. I agree totally. And, you know, the timing ain't real good, right? If you think about it, there's a lot of states opening up. There's a lot of racing happening, a lot of local racing happening. So now, you know, if this same event would have happened 30 days ago, they would have had huge numbers because none of the tracks were open, especially like Wisconsin. There's a lot of tracks all over the country that weren't open. Now, I think they're a little late to the game with this deal to really take advantage. I talked to some people. Actually, I talked to Ben at Dirt Race Central, you know, about the numbers. And he says, well, you know, the numbers are going to consistently start to kind of go down just a little bit compared to what they were a month ago, simply because there's a lot more racing going on. So it'll be interesting to see how that works out. You know, hopefully they have the highlights on, or I don't know if they'll replay it or whatever. Because I mean, don't get me wrong, I do want to watch it. You know, but the fact is, I'm not going to spend $150 to do it for sure.
So, like you said, $50,000 to win, $200,000 ish total purse. 3 nights of racing, the 10K prelim races Thursday, Friday, $50,000 win on Saturday. So I'm trying to look it for you, and I had in my number now. I can't remember how many drivers are they inviting. 50?
50, I believe.
Okay, yeah, okay. So 50 drivers, invite only, fanless. So like I said, Flow Sports to catch all the action there. All right, fellas.
And there was 4 people that got voted in, right? So Tyler Carpenter, Freddie Carpenter, I think Tanner English, and
Eckert.
Rick Eckert. So the fans voted them in, and there was a few people belly aching on there saying, well, here's the deal. Schlenk was up in the top 4, and there's some people call it conspiracy or whatever that he kind of got snubbed. So I don't know. that's a lot of money. Obviously, Tony Stewart is not hurting for money. You know, he does okay. He's probably made a little bit of money in his day, so he can afford to take the hit. And I can see why they're doing the 150, paying 50 grand to win. I get it, but man, I just don't see how it's gonna. Hopefully, they have some big sponsors and don't plan on it being profitable.
Yeah, I know from knowing Rick personally, Eldora hasn't always left a good taste in his mouth. So I'm sure they talked to him and cleared to make sure he was going to come. But I know when I was there a couple of years ago, he didn't show up, and he said, it hasn't been my favorite place. So
well,
like I said, right away this weekend.
It's been a while since he's raced there.
Yeah, something happened, and I can't remember the details, but something happened. 5, 7.
You're gonna have to do some digging on that. Hey, get a hold of him here this week and do some digging. You can throw it up on the Facebook page. What you find.
Perfect. Will do. All right, fellas, we are on the last lap, so we have one to go. All right, Ryan, you're our promoter of the group. You're the race. You wear a lot of hats here. You're the driver. You got to give us the driver. You speak for millions of drivers every week. You're the promoter. You speak for millions of promoters every week. We want to know, or I want to know, I'm here up in northern Minnesota. Are we ever going to see racing in Minnesota this summer?
Okay, so first of all, the answer is yes. Actually, there's racing happening in Minnesota this weekend. So last week, Minnesota announced that they're allowing racetracks to open fanless. Okay, it says fanless right in there, but it also said 250 people max capacity. That includes drivers, crew, safety personnel, and track workers. 250 total people in a confined space. Now, I don't know what a confined space is. I think of a confined space like the concession area, but from what I talked to a few people that are promoters, and from what they understand, that's facility, but it does specifically say no spectators. It specifically says that in the new executive order. Now, from what I understand, the North Central Speedway up in Brainerd, they've been trying to open, guys, for 3-4 weeks here. They were ready to open. In fact, they had one race, didn't they? Yeah, they had one race. They had one race, I think, at North Central, and they tried to run, and they got shut down by the state, so they couldn't. I understand.
That's run.
Yeah, they're doing a 3-day show. I believe it's going to be Friday, Saturday, Sunday. I think Friday they're going to run some Wissota classes. Saturday, Sunday is going to be IMCA. So North Central Speedway, Brainerd, Minnesota. I also understand the Granite City Speedway in Sauk Rapids, right by St. Cloud. They're planning on opening this weekend. Rumor had it Ogilvy was looking, but I don't know that that's going to happen. They might push that out another week. There's a few places looking at having some practices. So I'm thinking in my mind, this is going to be phase one. Phase one is going to open at fanless, right, and kind of do that deal. If that deal goes good for a week or whatever, I'm really optimistic that they're going to maybe go to phase two and maybe have a limited deal where it's like 50% of the capacity in the grandstands or something like that. I'm optimistic that sometime in June, you're going to see the better part of Minnesota opening up, going racing.
Well, Bert, Wisconsin got some good news on some racing, especially on the modified front. Do you want to fill in the race fans?
141 Speedway announced that they will be pushing forward with the Clash at the Creek this year. The event is June 17 and 18, practice on the 16th. Ricky Thornton Jr. has won this race the last 2 years. It's a 10,000 to win IMCA modified show. And I did reach out to Ricky Thornton via his Facebook page this morning, asking if he was going to be trying for a three-peat since he's doing so well on the World of Outlaw Late Model Tour now. And I got a reply back stating that his plan is to race the Clash at the Creek at 141 Speedway. So that is interesting, considering there is a World of Outlaw late model race on the 18th, according to the schedule on the website. But as we know, this season, you can't necessarily go by schedules. Everything's a fluid situation as far as when and where races are being held. So that is good news. So it'll be interesting to see if he can make it 3 in a row.
Awesome. Well, we want to reach out to, or not reach out, but wish Mr. Darrell Lanigan a happy 50th birthday. Will be coming up here on Wednesday. He'll probably be in his hauler headed to Eldora that day, and the guy's still going strong, sitting in the top 5 in the World of Outlaw late model points as we speak. So that's kind of it on the last lap.
Hey, Rice Lake's opening up this. Actually, Rice Lake opened up this past weekend, but they're actually running a late model special in Rice Lake on Saturday. $2,000 to win. They raised the purse. $2,000 to win. $200 to start. It's going to be. I'm curious to see how many guys are going to show up because there's nowhere else racing, right? I mean, Cedar Lake doesn't have late models on Saturday, so I'm anticipating seeing 40 cars, maybe 40 late models for $2,000 to win. I mean, it's right there in the heart of Wisconsin. A lot of them guys have already been racing, so I'm really curious to see that. Superior, Gondik Law Speedway, like we talked about, they're racing Thursday and Friday, and there's what's your guys' really quick? What's the race you're looking forward to this week?
Go ahead, Bert. I know what's
well, I'll be going to Shawano Speedway's opener on Saturday. I don't believe I've missed an opener since like the 1980s sometime. So I got a long streak running going to openers there. They held a practice this last Saturday and had 85 cars for a practice, which is pretty good. So, and they only had 4 late models there for the practice because there's another track in the area hosting a late model show. So, I'm expecting well over 100 cars at Shawano Speedway this weekend. So I'll be there on Saturday.
Who's your pick to win the late models there?
I'll go with Nick Avalink.
Homer.
He usually wins opening night.
He's solid. He's good for sure. Pooka, what race are you looking forward to this week?
Yeah, I was, of course, I'm going to keep an eye on the stream, and maybe we should give some picks real quick before we leave, or we could throw that up on the Facebook page even later on that. But, I'm going to keep an eye on that. And, beautiful day today, 85 degrees, 100% humidity, feels like summer, not a cloud in the sky 2 hours ago. But then looking at the forecast as the week goes, we get down to the 70s, and by the week we're into the 60s because Superior or Gondik Law Speedway would be an option. And now that I just found out about this Rice Lake deal from you guys, it's a 3-hour trip, but who knows, but like I said, it's got to be, I'm not going to go up at 60 degrees. Let's put it that way.
Open up that checkbook. I mean, 60 degrees, you're from northern Minnesota. Dude, you play hockey. What are you talking about?
I think I spent too much time in the arena this winter.
I was going to say, you play hockey, you're whining about 60 degrees. Are you kidding me? So, go to Superior on Friday night, watch the late models there. And I think maybe this could work out really well. A bunch of them guys might come to Superior and then go to Rice Lake. But, take the kids, go down to the water park, spoil the kids during the day on Saturday, head down to Rice. Open up that checkbook, man. Come on.
Boy, dusty. I don't want to get all that dust in my eyes.
Take the kids to the races. We need new fans. One thing I want to mention, I went to the practice at Shawano Speedway, and I took my granddaughter, who's going to turn 3 in the middle of June. So it was her first time ever at a racetrack, and she did very well, and she seemed to enjoy it. So I envision taking her to some races this year. And
in about a year or two, you're going to have to get her a go-kart and maybe bring it up to talking about Rice Lake, right? Bring it up there. Buzzy Adams got the track going and get her in a go-kart. I'm going to say that the race I'm looking forward to, in all honesty, I guess, I'm looking forward to Superior, of course, because they got that doubleheader. But I'm going to say Rice Lake. I'm looking forward to, they got a late model show. They were supposed to have some Challenge Series stuff happening, but they threw the late models on the card. I'm really going to be looking forward to seeing that. What I'm really curious to see is Buzzy Adams going to make his debut, right? Yeah. So I'm really curious to see if Buzzy is going to make his debut in that late model at the Rice Lake Speedway. I believe he is. I haven't heard anything, but we'll check into that. Maybe we'll try to get some confirmation up on the One to Go Show Facebook page. And then my pick for that race is Jesse Glenz. He's been red hot. He's been winning a bunch. So I'm gonna say Jesse Glenz is gonna win that race. And the homer side of me is going, I'd really like to see Devin Van House come away with a top 3 finish down there because he's been really good as well. So with that said, Pooka, we'll turn it back to you.
Well, yeah, and I think, like I said, why don't we save this in the name of time? We'll come up with our stream picks. We'll put that up on the Facebook page. We got a couple days on that. We could pick the 2 nights and then the main event. So yeah, with that, I think that pretty much closes it out, guys.
Yep.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you, race fans, for joining us. Like I said, we're here every week. Please come back and join us. Like I said, give us a thumbs up if you get a chance. Like I said, we wanted some comments earlier about whether you've watched a race online. especially during this COVID. And if you do have a subscription monthly, that'd be great if you could let us know. And with that, like I said, get out there as always and be your dream. You're tuned to the One to Go show.